Welcome to Mountains Made Low, where we help you encounter the love of God and live well in the modern world. I'm Dennis Miller.
Can you just say, and she's Christine Reagan?
And she's Christine Reagan.
Because she still sounds like this. It's better, right? Is it a little bit better?
Yeah, I'm missing the Demise stuff, but that's all right.
I'll try to get down in a lower register. But the drama continues. If you want to know why I sound like this, go back to the last episode if you missed it. But yes, and I'm Christine Reagan. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about, I don't know what we're going to ultimately title this episode, but we're talking about truth. Maybe we'll call it What is Truth? Maybe we'll call it The Search for What is Real. But in a culture that is shaped by opinion, by algorithms, by personal preference, many people have come to believe that truth is relative, meaning that it's flexible, it's subjective, or it's self-created, right? It's a little bit like the self-curation that we're talking about.
All false.
Yeah, all false. But Christianity boldly claims that truth is not invented by us, which is very bold and countercultural for us to say. Mm-hmm. Truth is discovered, just like any of the greatest scientific discoveries of all time.
Right.
Now, here's our chit-chat portion.
Uh-oh.
What do you think is the greatest scientific discovery of all time?
Pizza.
It's chemistry in some way.
Yeah,
I get it.
It's chemistry. I don't know.
Let me phrase it differently. What is a scientific discovery that you don't want to live without?
That I don't want to live without.
Like, what's one modern scientific something? I don't know. Or you can answer it the first way.
Yeah, no, I would say it would have to, for me, to be honest with you, it would probably be something with space exploration.
Really?
And just the understanding of the universe.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's really neat because the more that they look at it, the more they kind of see that there's all these constants. I mean, for me, it's just, science is just affirming the existence of God.
Sure, yeah.
Through all of that stuff, more so than refuting it. Yeah, so I think that's kind of cool.
And you, Christine, well, thank you once again.
Well, I thought you were just going to go.
I was just going to go, but it's
Okay.
nice to be invited into the conversation.
Christine, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of going back and forth between like DNA, like the discovery of DNA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about how much that allowed, the knowledge that is built from that, and then something just like insulin. I don't know if we had not, or like antibiotics, things like that. So things that are kind of medicine oriented. The first medicine that was ever discovered that was found to actually alleviate pain or alleviate symptoms. I would say that just modern medicine is probably the greatest scientific discovery of all time.
I think it was probably a club to the back of the head.
It's like, oh, my dad has a great joke. It's like a guy goes to the doctor and he says, "Doctor, it hurts when I do this." And the doctor says, "Well, don't do that."
Right.
Or the doctor like hits him and says, "Well, no, it's not just your foot that hurts, but it's your..."
Right.
Okay, you've heard this before.
I have.
All right. Well, you've been around a long time. So these are new things to me. But okay, so more than all of these scientific discoveries, we believe that truth is ultimately found in the person of Jesus. That is the greatest discovery, the greatest revelation, the greatest recognition that the human person has ever experienced, has ever really been privileged to encounter. So in this episode, we're going to explore what truth is, why it matters, and how a life lived in truth leads to freedom, leads to meaning, leads to union with God.
So let's begin with this famous words of Pontius Pilate before the crucifixion of Jesus. I mean, that great line that we hear every single time we celebrate the Triduum and the Passion narrative. What is truth?
Can you give me the verse number of what is truth?
No.
1838. I don't know why I know that.
Okay.
But you can find it in John's Gospel, chapter 18, verse 38.
There you go. And I think it's a good question for us to ponder because I don't think we really ask ourselves that question, what is truth? For me, it's almost like an existential type question. And I think, sadly, a lot of what people tend to say is truth is actually false because they've not taken the time to think things through logically. Like when someone says that truth is relative or that there is no absolute truth. I mean, that cannot be a true statement because if it were true, it would be an absolute truth. And therefore, according to their
well,
own
that's
position,
a good point. It violates the whole thing.
It violates the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you can't say that there is no absolute truth or that truth is relative because what you're creating is something, that statement itself is relative and an absolute truth.
Right.
And so it's a contradiction of terms.
Right. On top of the fact that you're wrong.
Well, I mean, that's what makes it wrong.
Right.
So, but people don't think logically anymore. They don't think philosophically anymore. They don't sit back and they just try to reason. We react more than ponder. And so I think that's a big problem. So before we can even get into what truth is, I think we first need to go through what truth is not.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So tell us what truth isn't.
Well, I think truth is not what somebody believes, no matter how deeply held that belief may be. Because a lie is a lie no matter what you believe, right? So
Like a lie that you believe is still a lie. You just happen to believe the lie, right?
Right. So, and we do that because, like, for example, like we buy into some of the fake stuff that's out there, the fake news that's out there. Sometimes we lie to ourselves, convincing ourselves that we're telling ourselves the truth.
Well,
we create a story or a narrative, but it's still a lie, but we believe it now.
I tell my students, I go with this example, I say, imagine, and this is something that I'm not trying to dumb it down for them, but this is an example that they can relate to. I say, imagine that you're in a relationship and that your best friend sees your boyfriend or girlfriend cheating on you. And then they come to you and say, gosh, I really don't want to tell you this, but let me tell you what I saw. They're telling you the truth. You can say till the cows come home, that's not true. That didn't happen. They would never do that to me. No matter how much you believe the lie that it didn't happen, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
Right.
You can just deny it.
Yeah.
But a lie that you believe, it doesn't matter how tightly you hold it, it's still a lie.
And there's a lot of denial out there today.
Yeah.
A lot of denial. So the other thing that we kind of want to look out for too is that truth is not whatever works. It's not like some type of pragmatic approach to things. Lies and false premises may solve problems, but it doesn't make it right. So just because something is a solution doesn't mean that it's good.
Right, because people say that sometimes. They'll be like, well, how could this be wrong? It's working.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it might be working temporarily, but it doesn't mean that it's good for you. It doesn't mean that it's feeding you. It doesn't mean that it's depriving you of the life that you're supposed to have.
And then we have, this is a common one, but it's truth is not what makes people feel good.
And I think this is most of the time what people are saying what truth is, right? This feels so good. It feels so right.
Has to be true.
Has to be true.
Right. But because bad news can be true. Right? Like a poor diagnosis is true no matter how much we wish it wasn't. And then the other thing too is like truth is not like majority rules. Historically, plenty of majorities have reached wrong conclusions. So truth can easily exist in the minority. One is all it takes, even if that one is the Almighty.
Yeah,
I mean,
God himself, right?
I mean, take a look at Jesus, all the opponents, I mean, he's speaking truth. He was one, literally a minority. The Sadducees, the Pharisees were against him. A lot of the people had turned against him, except for like just a handful of people. They were definitely the minority, but he was speaking truth. Sometimes I think what we see in culture today is this idea that we try to shout down those people that are speaking the truth.
Right, the louder that we are, as though it drowns out the truth somehow. And the truth is the truth regardless of how many people acknowledge it or not.
Right. So all of these things, these options are what truth is not. So why don't you just give us what is truth?
Yeah, so, we need to know what truth is because we use the word truth an awful lot. We hear phrases like live your truth and truth is different for everybody.
I hate those statements.
What's true for... I'm going to get you a mug that says, live your truth. And then you can just...
It's almost like when I hear somebody... It's terrible because like if I'm in conversation and I hear somebody say that, I mean, I have to resist the temptation for my eyes to roll in the back of my head because I know like, oh, here we go.
Well, it's not even it's the your part. It's live your truth, not live the truth.
Right.
It's live your truth.
Yeah. There's so many issues there. Go ahead.
Yeah. So another one that I hear all the time is what's true for you may not be true for me and vice versa, right? That's the relativism just coming out of our mouths, basically. So you would think that a world and a culture where everybody lived their truth, by the way, would be sheer perfection. And yet, despite all of our authentic living and self-discovery and personal freedom, people are still restless and they're lost and they're searching for more. Not to mention they're bitter, they're anxious, and they're depressed. I mean, why is this? Maybe it's because there is no truth in how we're living to begin with, or it's certainly not the fullness of truth.
Well, I think the why begins because human beings are made for reality. I mean, when we're made for truth, and Christianity makes this staggering claim that truth is not an idea, it's not my opinion, truth has a face. Truth is a person. It's Jesus Christ. And in the Gospel of John, Jesus even claims that for himself when he says, I am the way and the truth and the life. Not a truth, not my truth, not your truth. He is the truth. Truth matters because reality matters. And I think as
I love
Catholics,
Now say that again. Just say that again, because there has to be that connection between truth and reality.
truth matters because reality matters. And so I think as Catholics in the world, we cannot approach the subject of truth and leave Jesus out of the equation. Leave him, just remove him from the conversation, kind of set him on the shelf, because he is the conversation. And today we ask if truth is merely relative, meaning if every person creates truth for themselves, then other things will automatically begin to collapse. Things like justice, human dignity, goodness, beauty, and even love. They all hinge on there being absolute truth and reality. For example, goodness is indeed goodness because of its relationship to truth. Beauty is actually beauty because of its connection to the truth.
Yeah.
And so we run into all sorts of problems when truth is subjective.
Yeah, if truth is subjective, well, then morality becomes all about personal preference. And something as fundamental and inalienable as human dignity becomes negotiable. Like, you have dignity only if I decide you do, or if I deem you worthy or valuable enough.
Yeah.
So without objective truth, society eventually becomes ruled not by what is true, but by whoever is loudest or strongest or most influential.
Yep.
We really see that today. This is really self-evident in social media and the cancel culture that we live in, where one side tries to drown the other out or organizes itself best.
Yeah. And this is why the Catholic understanding is radically different and radically necessary in today's day and age. Because truth is not created by human beings. Truth is discovered through reason, revelation, conscience, and ultimately through God himself. So when you define truth along those lines, right away we can see why the world is struggling with truth. Because if it's ultimately through God himself and the world is growing increasingly estranged from God, then they're detaching themselves from the source of truth. Okay? And if truth is discovered through reason, and we're not taking the time to ponder things and to reason things and think philosophically about some of the arguments that we're making and whether they are reasonable, then that goes out the window. And conscience, oh my gosh, if everything's relativistic, then conscience goes out the window too, because it's going to be what makes me feel good or what I think is right.
Conscience is rooted in the truth, and if there is no truth, then your conscience has nothing to hold on to.
Yeah, you're going to do whatever makes you feel good. So we can kind of see the collapse. Really, I see it as the collapse of society because truth is being manipulated by the enemy. Right. And people are drinking the Kool-Aid. They are just down in it, and it's causing all sorts of issues in society today.
Yeah. Thomas Aquinas taught that the truth is the conformity of the mind to reality. What is true becomes known when our minds conform and is in sync with what is in reality.
Yeah.
Thomas means here that something is true when it corresponds to what is actually real. This is why truth matters, because reality matters. It sounds simple, but it changes everything. The recognition of absolute truth means acknowledging reality exists outside of ourselves, which is a very humble thing to say. My lived experience isn't all that matters, and it's not the center of the universe. It's saying that we're accountable to what is real. Is that not what's happening in a court of law, by the way? Right? It's funny that in a legal system, a lot of these things have to come back into play because you cannot play by your subjective rules in that courtroom. If law were relative and not grounded in reality, there could be no justice. Justice would be arbitrary.
Right.
In a court of law, you can't just say, this is the truth of what happened. One party gets to do it, then another party gets to do it, give their understanding, their opinion, their experience, and then somebody tries to investigate the truth of the matter.
Right.
Right? Because
where's the evidence lead?
Where's the evidence, right? That's why the reality of it all.
Right.
Right? That's what the jury is trying to decide. What happened in reality? So
that's really the key piece, I think, of the reality, is that the reality is the evidence. Mm-hmm. So, I can say whatever I want. I can believe whatever I want. I can claim whatever I want. But if it's not in sync with reality, then it can't be true. Mm-hmm. I think that's why our minds have to be conformed to reality. Mm-hmm.
Which is the most logical place to be.
Right, because we see through the evidence what is real, and the second that we begin to deny that, I think that's what Augustine's saying. The second that we begin to refuse to conform to that evidence or accept that evidence and reject it, our minds are no longer conformed to reality. And that's where chaos and bedlam begin to enter into the thing.
Now, Catholics also go a step further and say that the human person really flourishes when we live our lives in the truth that God is, rather than the illusions that we create for ourselves. Catholics say this is how you live the most full, deeply meaningful life. This is how you live the life that you were created for, to live in the truth that God is, because you know the truth about God, you know the truth about yourself, and what it is that we're doing here.
And that makes sense, because when Jesus says that I am the way, the truth, and the life, and then he later tells us that I have come that you may experience life and have it to the full, it sinks.
Right. Walk this way to what? To the fullness of life.
Right.
And then the Christian claim is not merely that Jesus teaches the truth. The claim is that Jesus is the truth incarnate. He's the truth in the flesh. So when Jesus stands before Pilate during his passion, he says, "For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth."
Which is himself.
Yeah.
This is what causes Pilate to respond, what is truth? That question really, I think, defines modern culture. And it's interesting, like when you get into like the Greek, I love getting into like the Greek or the Hebrew, the original language, because when you get into the actual Greek word that Pilate uses for truth, it's aletheia. And it really implies something that is unveiled, something that is unhidden, something that is fully revealed.
That's why I like likening it to these scientific discoveries, because it's not like these things just fell out of the sky. It's a recognition of what's actually been here all along.
Yeah. This isn't theory. I mean, theories are things that need to be tested, to be proven. They have to be grounded in reality. You can have a theory, but then it has to be empirically tested. So when we're talking about truth, this is something that has already been unveiled. It's something that was hidden and now has been revealed. So Pilate is staring truth in the face and cannot even recognize him who is truth. So many people today, I think, continue to do the same. And what we've done is we've traded truth for relativism.
Yeah, but we've been watching a lot of Lord of the Rings lately. I am on such a Lord of the Rings kick. And there's a moment in the first movie where Gandalf...
Every time I see it, it comes up.
I can't stop.
I know,
There's something... It's like stirring all these things in me of like... I'm just seeing the world differently. I don't know what it is. But
well, it's your Hobbit-esque connection.
It is. But it's... The Catholicness of it is really striking me. The deeply spiritual reality that's being conveyed in those movies and in the books is, with me. But Gandalf says to Saruman in the first movie and in the book as well, although it's not said like this, but he says when he asks Saruman when he traded reason for madness. And as we were thinking about this episode, that came to mind. I mean, so many people in society today have traded reason, have traded logic, have traded reality. What is the evidence of what is true for sheer madness?
Yeah,
I'm not saying that they're mad. I'm not trying to call people crazy. But what they think is
unreasonable.
Madness.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think a perfect example of that is the growing list of gender identities and how gender identity proponents construct their arguments around their truth that gender is a construct of the mind. I mean, that is just not grounded in reality, and as a result, reason has been traded for madness. Yeah. I mean, this is what we're talking about, right? Yeah.
So Benedict XVI, he frequently warned about what he called the dictatorship of relativism, which is the idea that nothing is true and that personal desire becomes the highest authority. Again, this is that gender ideology. That's what governs us. We actually become our own dictators. And then we try to dictate for others in the process. So we're almost becoming what we should hate to become.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The fact that people say, these are the pronouns that you have to use.
Yep.
I insist that you use these pronouns when you're addressing me. We can't dictate how others think or speak or relate to your perceived reality.
Right.
Which is frankly just your illusion or your opinion.
Right.
So relativism eventually exhausts people because human beings are built for truth the way that the lungs are built for air, or the way that Christine was built for coffee, or apparently the way Christine was built for Lord of the Rings. Either one at this point. These are empirical and existential truths. And if you distract yourself long enough, or if you dull your senses enough, you might not recognize it. But we're not recommending that course of action. That's a key problem in our society today. We're so overstimulated that we struggle to focus on what's really important. And you can spend your life doing that.
And I would say that we fail to really take the time to discover what is true and to differentiate fact from opinion and some of the madness that we're being spoon-fed.
And if I'm busy enough all the time, well, I'm not going to stop and think about those things. And if I keep myself busy, I can live a life that way.
And that, I got to tell you, like, I worry about my kids because I see some of the things that they occasionally post or some of the comments that they make. And I have to call them out because they occasionally form their opinion on what is in their feed, like we talked about last week's episode. Yeah. And it doesn't often provide the complete picture. And so I just feel that they're too quick to form opinions or jump on the bandwagon without doing their due diligence to fact check the truth and validity of the opinion that whatever it is that they're subscribing to. It's often the side, I feel, that's shouting the loudest at the moment that catches their attention and drowns out the opposition of differing opinion.
And gets them with the emotion. What is the most manipulative way, that I can get you to hop on the bandwagon?
Yeah. I mean, we touched on this in last week's episode on holiness in the digital age.
So you're talking about your kids. What do you think is, with that age group, what are they struggling when it comes to truth? What truth are they struggling with the most?
To be honest with you, what I see them caught into are some of the political aspects, the divide that we see in this country. They're getting sucked into that a little bit. And some of these like current issues that might be going on.
Like what,
things.
Though? Give me a current issue.
Like just talking about ICE agents or something along those lines.
Do your kids listen to this podcast?
No, they don't.
Okay.
No, they don't. Yeah, they don't. They don't. They're like, Dad, I hear you every day. I don't need to hear you in my ears when I'm driving the car. And like, I get it.
Yeah.
All right. And stuff that I'm saying on the podcast is stuff that
you say to their face.
I say to their face. So
well, what were you going to say? You saw it. Tell the story.
No, but I was going to say, like, you just can't make a global statement that fuels into the fire. Fact checked. It's just it's as simple as that. Take a look. Do some investigation. Don't believe everything that you have on the page there. We're formulating opinions without really knowing all of the facts. And then what happens is now we're creating our own reality.
Well, I think that too, do we really have these opinions or do our opinions have us?
Well, yeah, I think...
Right? Or does the prevailing opinion have us? We think we own our thoughts. There are times I have to check myself. Do I really think this or have I been told to think it? Have I been conditioned to think this? So do we own our thoughts or do they own us?
Right. In the end, I don't think we can flourish in unreality forever. I think this is one of the reasons we are seeing a resurgence in church attendance and a growing number of people coming into the church at this time. Because I just think that they're tired of the madness and the incongruencies of our time and are really longing for truth. And thankfully, thank you, Jesus, they are finding that truth in the church where the source of truth reigns.
Yeah.
I mean, they're finding it in Jesus Christ, in how our faith is lived out and expressed through our life as members of the body of Christ, the sacramental life, through the church, through sacred scripture, all of those things. Yeah, this is a great thing.
I think it gives people comfort to know that they are not the ultimate authority on truth. It should give you comfort.
It takes a lot of weight off me. That's for sure.
So we've defined what truth is, but I think what people also really struggle with is how do we know if something is true, right? How can we measure statements that we hear, messaging, opinions, information? How can we measure it to know if something is actually true or not? So how can we know the truth? I think the first litmus test is the correspondence to reality. So let's go back to what Aquinas said. So if something is true, if it aligns with what actually exists. Truth is not determined by emotion or popularity.
It goes back to that reality piece that Augustine said.
Yeah, feelings matter, but feelings alone cannot define reality, which is why the gender ideology of today is so easily broken down. I mean, I don't care, and I say this charitably, I don't care who you think you are, what gender you think you are. When we're all buried and they dig us up, they're going to know. Biologically, they will know if we were a man or a woman. It is that fundamental. You can look at our DNA, you look at our bone structure and our bone density and our bone, information biologically, and all of that will be able to tell them who and what we are.
Right.
So
I think the other thing too here is like coherence, because truth, it fits together. Authentic truth does not ultimately contradict itself. You can't have a contradiction of truths. Truth is coherent because reality is coherent. If something is real, it's self-evident. So it
should
can't-
make sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It can't contradict itself. So the goods that we experience in this life should be unified in a marriage of some sort, right? There should be some type of coherence there. Things like faith and reason, body and the soul, love and morality, freedom, responsibility. But I think what you see today is like you see this challenge where they want to separate these things out. And then they're in conflict with one another. Like faith and reason, it's like science and religion. There's no conflict there. There's no conflict there. They're two sides of the same coin. They complement one another when you're working
When you're in the truth.
When you're in the truth.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's what I was going to say. And like the body and soul. Look at how they're trying to separate body and soul today. Like the spiritual from the physical. It's just
Like somebody could say, well, this feels good to my body, but it's not good for your soul. It's like, well, hold on a second.
Yeah, something as simple as like pornography, drug abuse, addiction, all of those things. It makes me feel good, but it's not good for the soul.
Right. What's good for what is truly good for the body would filter into the soul.
Right.
Would feed the soul.
Yeah. So something that is truth would not violate one in favor of the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can't happen.
So we have reality testing, we have coherence, and then I think the third test is the fruit. Right?
And I got to be honest, I like this one the best.
Well, Jesus says you will know them by their fruits in the scripture. So truth produces clarity in thought and in action, virtue in moral decision making, and love of the other as other. It doesn't bind you up, but it frees you up to love more profoundly. Like think about my marriage, right? My marriage to one person allows me to more freely love in that united relationship, in that permanent, exclusive relationship. I don't feel restricted because I can't experience other men. No, I choose not to because I want to give all of myself. I want to pour all of my love, all of my body, all of my soul into one person. That leads to freedom, not restriction.
Yeah.
And so truth makes freedom possible. I feel more free in my relationship to Sean than I would feel with anybody else. And it's not just about how I feel, it's the knowledge that I'm living in. I know it to be true. Falsehood and sin eventually produces confusion and division, emptiness, and you can feel despair about what it is that we're doing on a daily basis. Human beings are most free when living in accordance to the truth of who they really are.
Really are.
And the will that God has designed for them, the will that God has in store for them, right? I feel the most free doing what it is that I have discovered through revelation, through prayer, through discernment, what God wants me to do, why he's made me.
Yeah, and that revelation piece I think is important because for Christians, Jesus is the ultimate revelation of truth because he reveals who God is, who humanity is, and really what love is and what life is for. So what more do you need to know, right? What more do you need to know?
Yeah, the search for truth is obviously a big topic of conversation in the modern age, but it's not exclusive to the modern age. Back in the 17th century, Blaise Pascal said, truth in this time is so obscured and lies so widespread that one cannot recognize the truth unless one loves it. Spoken hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What's that, 17th century? Was that 1600s?
1600s.
1600s.
He was born late 15s into the
Okay.
16. I think he died in 1651.
Yeah, so like, if you're a longtime listener to this podcast, I think you're going to realize that a lot of the issues that we struggle with in terms of faith, society, all of those things, they're not new. This is just a part of our fallen human nature. And this is why these topics, this struggle just keeps resurfacing generation after generation in new ways, through new methods, but it's just the age-old problem of our fallenness and the hold that sin has on us. But there's something about falling in love with Jesus that really makes truth possible. I mean, I don't think truth is not about factual correctness, although Jesus is factual and correct. I think it's more relational.
And that's what Pilate can't recognize when he says, what is truth? I think he's looking for that kind of factual correctness. Show me the law, show me this, show me some kind of precedent when he can't recognize the person and the relationship and the relationality of what's going on.
Think about it. I mean, he's a military officer. He's used to order. He's used to structure. So he's looking for something concrete, right? He's not even thinking about relationship. But what do you think gives a martyr the strength to give his life or her life for the truth? It's that relationship with Jesus. no one's going to die for a belief. They're going to die for a person, I would think. Don't you
Yeah,
think?
I think you kind of. It's true. Like you do believe it, and you have a deeply held faith, right? You die for your faith, but you have to extend the conversation a little further to say, well, who's the center of your faith? It's not a what. I don't think people are willing to die for like a what, but they would die for a who. Like I would die for my kids.
Yeah.
I would die for my spouse. Those are people, right? I believe a lot of things about them, and I have faith in the love that we all have for each other, but I die for the person. I
Yeah.
give my life for the person. you know?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go off tangent here and everything.
No, please do. It's my favorite thing.
But no, I wonder. I mean, don't you think that there are people that maybe die for a cause?
Right, but I think they die for the future implication of the cause and the people that it will affect. I think even if they were, I think they do. I think they do die for the cause, but ultimately,
But you think it's for like the greater good of society,
people in the future.
People, right?
I do. Even if you're not willing to recognize it, I don't know that people are really just willing to die for something that's inanimate, or not life-giving or life-sustaining. I think ultimately, if you were to press people, you would find that even if they're dying for the wrong thing, they're doing it for love of people. Or they're doing it for the future conclusion or culmination in the human person.
Okay. All right.
Agree?
No.
Do you know what I mean?
I see that. I was just trying to reconcile that in my head. After I said that, I was sitting thinking, like, well, wait, I think there are people that would probably die for a cause. But no, understand what you're saying.
Right. What they want is for people to join the cause.
Right. Because
So
ultimately,
it's people.
Yeah, ultimately, they believe that this cause will make things better for society, for people.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I got you. All right.
But I mean, dying for what is true, there is no greater commitment to the truth.
No, I
If you're
agree.
willing to die for it, you're giving your all.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
agree.
greater commitment to the truth. I'm not saying that most of us are not going to die for the truth, but are we actually willing to live for the truth? That's something else. The martyrs died for it. Can we simply live for it? Edith Stein, who is a saint, she goes by a different name. What is it?
Well, I think it's Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross.
Yes, it is. Okay. So she journeyed from atheism to Catholicism. There's Judaism mixed into that as well. But she believed that truth ultimately demands surrender, not intellectual agreement. Who's willing to surrender to a thing?
Yeah.
They might surrender to a person. And I think that's the secret ingredient of all of this. She said, do not accept anything as truth if it lacks love, right? The scripture says that too, right? Do not accept anything as love which lacks truth. It kind of goes back to what you were saying about how they'll be coherent, they'll fit together, they'll make sense together. Love and truth, right? Body and soul. That insight cuts right into our modern age. Truth without love becomes cruelty. Let's say I have a truth to reveal to you, but it's going to be a really tough pill to swallow. If I don't love you, if that's not my motivation in sharing the truth, then I don't really care how the pill goes down, or even if it goes down. Your struggle has no bearing.
Choke on that pill.
Right. Your struggle has no bearing on me whatsoever. Is that how we would want to be treated? No.
No, I know I wouldn't want to be
No.
treated that way.
And then what about love without truth?
Well, I mean, I think love without truth would be pure sentimentality. And like if you have a dear friend who's struggling with an addiction, but you're willing to watch them self-destruct, what are you actually doing?
You're not really making it about them because you did not actually act out in love towards them.
Yeah, I think truth and love always have to go together, which makes sense because, God is love, Jesus is truth. They are two persons of the Blessed Trinity. This is the essence of God.
They're all
Truth, all the same,
all the
right?
same stuff.
Right. So truth and love always have to go together because they are
They're actually one.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say they are God. God is truth. God is love. Right. So you can't separate it out.
So to bring this back home, this earthly existence offers stimulation and comfort. We talked about it last week, but little meaning. And deep down, meaning comes from alignment with reality and communion with God. C.S. Lewis wrote that if we discover within ourselves desires nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that we were made for another world.
Yeah. Those existential truths, right, that he talks about.
With truth, then life changes. The purpose of life changes. Truth becomes a pilgrimage towards union with God. It becomes a pilgrimage towards heaven. And that's not living for the moment. That's not eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow we die.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah.
That's I'm aware that I'm kind of slowly dying and I want to go somewhere. I want to live. I don't want to die. I want to live. Well, who's the source of all life? Who's the source of truth? God himself.
So let me throw this out there to you. You came to me with this idea of, you thought that it was really important to talk about truth, and you proposed all this stuff, and I thought this is really, really good. But like, what advice would you give to the listeners about this in particular? Like, what's the practical takeaway for them? I mean, because I think it's one thing to talk about truth.
Right. Well,
but
I do think we've kind of mentioned some of the practical takeaway. I think if you're wondering if something is true, you have to measure it against reality. You have to see if it goes together and look at the fruit that it's producing.
Okay.
I do think that's a pretty practical approach. I think, how do we know if something is true? Does it meet this, this, and this?
So that's the takeaway.
I do think so.
Okay.
And then ultimately, I find this in the bread of life discourse. Like, you see what happens where, Jesus says, unless you eat my body and drink my blood, you have no life within you. The people who are listening in the synagogue, they largely walk away. Who's left? The 12 are left. I always point out, we can't just assume as though the 12 were not struggling. The 12 were not misunderstanding or maybe just as repulsed by what Jesus said. They probably were. But what does Peter say? Peter says, Lord, to whom shall we go? He doesn't say, what else is out there? Or what else can we believe? He says, to whom? He makes it relational. He talks about the person.
You have the words of eternal life.
And so if you don't know if something is true, or if you don't know something that the Catholic Church believes is true, or something that Jesus says is true, which frankly are the same thing, you have to say, well, do I believe that Jesus is telling the truth? Do I believe that Jesus is a truth teller? And so if you believe that Jesus is a truth teller, then what he says must be the truth. So again, you surrender to the person, you believe in the person, the truth will become clearer. You can say, I believe in who you are. I don't really understand what you're saying. There's many things in the Bible which I think people are still struggling with. They go to Mass on a weekly basis. They're active in their faith. They're doing what they can do. They're trying to live a good life, but they don't understand why the church teaches what it does about gay marriage or abortion. But go back to the first, right? The first is, who is the person of Jesus? Do you believe that he's telling the truth about love and life and all of that? Well, then maybe what he's saying is also true. You get
Well,
my
not
point?
maybe.
Right. I'm trying to be gentle.
Right.
When I talk to the students, I often say, maybe that could be true. And they say, yeah. I'm like, exactly. Right. Like, just is the possibility out there that if he's a truth teller, well, then what would he do? He would tell the truth.
Right. Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
No, it does. Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to
What
think.
would you say?
For
The question that you just...
Well, I would say like you have to do your due diligence, and I think that kind of gets back to the coherence thing.
Right. That's why I like that outline. How do we know if something is true?
Yeah, I think you really need to make sure, like, listen, and that's what we just don't do it. We don't listen. We hear a lot of stuff. We hear stuff on the news. We hear stuff in our feeds. We read stuff in our feeds, but we're not listening. And I really think we need to do a better job of listening so we can see what is congruent and what is coherent and what is not. We need to be able to kind of differentiate through all of those things. I'll tell you, Mother Mary kind of sets the example. You take a look all throughout Luke's gospel, every single time something big has happened and she sits back and she ponders it.
That pondering that's going through the apostles when everybody else leaves and they're standing there with Jesus saying, I don't understand what you're saying, but
where else
we're going to stick
go?
with you.
You
We're
have the
gonna
words
stick
of
with
eternal
you.
life. Where else are we going to go? So they're going to sit down. They're going to work through it. They're going to ponder it, and I do think that we need to take more time. So don't be so quick just to jump on the bandwagon or just tune into whatever's making the loudest noise at the moment. Do your due diligence. Take a look at things. Take a look at the facts behind things. Look at different sources. Talking about last week's episode, that whole echo chamber thing. Like, I think sometimes we go and we're in with our own little bubble. The only thing that we're going to be looking at are things that are just going to keep confirming what it is that we're hearing. And we're not really going to be move outside of that bubble in order to hear some contradictory or conflicting opinions or truth that might be out there. People
And don't
say,
listen to your emotions too. Can I say too? People get... Did you ever tell somebody something and they, you've struck a nerve? You've struck a chord. And it's like, okay, obviously...
visceral reaction.
Right. And even if you're getting a reaction that you don't like, it's like, well, they're only reacting that way because you've pricked something in them.
Yeah.
So let them sit in that for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's why I treat you the way that I do.
I think sometimes even just answering that question, like, I just take some time to think about, like, why is this provoking you the way it is? Why is what I'm saying?
Why are you getting so upset right now? Right?
Yeah, like, why are you
Yeah.
getting so upset right now? Take some time to think about that. What's driving that? Because I do that myself sometimes. I catch myself sometimes reacting very strongly to something. I have to sit back and where is this stemming from? And a lot of times it might be maybe, again, maybe from my own insecurity, maybe because, maybe I am misinformed and in my pride, I don't want to admit I'm wrong.
Say, well, that's probably you
Right?
should start there. Not for you,
right.
yes, for you, but also for everybody. We do what we do because we think we're God. We get to be our own gods.
Yeah. So in the end, I think we just need to be courageous. We need to seek the truth. I think we need to be humble while you do it. Because without humility, your truth is sufficient, right? But with humility, I think we realize that God is the source of all truth. Because again, Jesus says, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Freedom isn't the ability to do anything whatsoever. Freedom is the ability to do what you ought to do, to be true, not to yourself, but to the truth itself. See the difference there, right?
Yeah.
That's everybody's, they have it in their house or they put them, the wall art, be true to yourself, right? How about be true to the truth itself? That's something very different. This is why saints and those who have converted to the faith, philosophers throughout history have continually returned to Christ, not because he made life easier, but because they became convinced that he was true.
Yeah.
That's why would somebody become Catholic? Because they believe it to be true.
I think
They've been met with the truth and they've given their life over to it.
Yeah, the search for truth is ultimately, I think you're right. I think it's a search for Christ. And when a person encounters him, not merely as an idea, but as reality itself, I think they begin to discover not only who God is, but who they themselves were made to become. And if Jesus came to bear witness to the truth, then I think we have to do that too. To really believe in God is to live a life that witnesses to the truth. To live a life in such a way, I think that if someone is seeking the truth, they can look to you for guidance and exemplary faith. It's kind of like what St. Paul says, be imitators of me as I am imitating Christ. Yeah. I know Jesus so well, I am living in that truth that, well, you might not know Jesus, but if you imitate me, you'll be imitating.
Right. It might be really difficult for somebody to talk about truth and God in the same sentence.
Yeah.
But if they trust you, maybe they don't trust God yet, maybe they don't know God yet, but they do know you and you're the one that's right in front of them. So then we are the instrument of truth in that moment.
Yep.
For them.
Right.
So we hope that this episode has helped you think more deeply about truth, meaning, and the person of Jesus. And we would encourage you to ask the Holy Spirit to help you keep seeking what is good and what's beautiful and what is true. And just know that as your relationship with God deepens, so will your knowledge of the truth.
Yeah,
if you're having a struggle with truth, cling to the person who is truth, and he'll show you why he makes sense.
It's a great way to end.
And we'll see you next week.
All right, God bless.